disabilities can go to find a safe haven, a place of wonderful opportunities and joy. Project ID has social opportunities, meal programs, fun recreation, career development, church services, and the largest Special Olympic team in the state. Project ID is a real community treasure. Please be a volunteer, sponsor a member, or donate what you can to Project ID, Identity Beyond Disability.
Hello, my wonderful, wonderful members and friends. I am so glad to see you today. We have another book to read, and I think it seemed like people liked the fairy tale so much that we are going to do that again. And this time we are going to do Aladdin. But I have to tell you, Aladdin was originally, instead of just a story from faraway places, it was actually written as a Chinese story. So our Aladdin that we're going to see today, whoa, someday I'm going to get this, guys, is going to be very different than the Disney story. And hopefully you will like that. It's got some different names and some interesting pieces. Maybe we will stop and see if you're seeing the interesting ones as we go. And it's a big book, and it's 2 pages at a time for the pictures. So you're going to have to bear with me. All right. Okay, here we go. Story time. This is the story of a young man named Aladdin who lived with his widowed mother in a city in China long, long ago. See, already there's a difference, because Aladdin was a homeless person in Disney. One day, Aladdin was talking with his friends in the street when a stranger approached him. He was an evil magician called Ebenezer. See if I can get that right each time. Ebenezer, who had traveled all the way from Africa to carry out a secret plan. "My boy," said Ebenezer, "I can make you extremely rich if you will only help me with a small task." Now, Aladdin and his mother were very, very poor, so he was eager and willing to help in whatever way. Ebenezer took Aladdin to a palace, or a place where a narrow tunnel led down to a mountainside. At the end of the tunnel, you will find a magic garden where precious jewels grow on trees, said the magician. You may help yourself to them. All I want is the ancient bronze lamp that burns in the garden. There are dangers in the tunnel, but wear this ring and it will protect you. Aladdin made his way down the tunnel to the magic garden where Ebenezer had promised. He found the ancient lamp and the beautiful jewels in the tree. Whoa. I told Bob someday I'm going to get my right and left better. So here he is, ready to go down the tunnel after they went down a steep place. Okay. So have you seen the differences already? Snuffing out the lamp, Aladdin put it in his pocket. He picked some of the jewels and then crept back up the mountain to the mountain of the tunnel, the mouth of the tunnel. "I see you have the lamp," cried Ebenezer. "Give it to me at once." Aladdin refused to do this until he was out of the tunnel. At this, Ebenezer became extremely angry, and screaming out some magic words, he sealed up the tunnel's entrance, leaving Aladdin imprisoned underneath. For 2 days, the boy remained crying in the dark. Then he accidentally rubbed the ring which Aladdin had given him. Immediately, an enormous genie appeared, saying, "I am the slave of the ring, and I am ready to obey you. What is your wish?" "Please take me out of this place," cried the startled Aladdin. And in a moment, he found himself standing out of the tunnel in an open air. So he's picking the jewels. And then there's the genie. Big thing to notice. What is that journey? What does that genie look like? Whoa, he's nothing like Disney, is he? When Aladdin arrived back home, his mother was overjoyed to see him. He told her the story of his adventures and showed him the old brass lamp. How strange, she said. Why would Ebenezer want this old lamp so badly? Look how dirty it is. And she rubbed it with her sleeve to shine it up. Suddenly, there was a deafening bang, and a huge genie came pouring like like smoke from the lamp, saying, "Behold, I am the genie of the lamp, the greatest of all genies. What is your wish?" Aladdin's mother was terrified, but Aladdin, who had seen a genie before, replied, "I am hungry. Please fetch me something to eat." In a moment, the kitchen table was spread with a marvelous feast. Aladdin quickly realized the incredible power of the lamp and why Ebenezer had wanted it so much. He commanded the genie to bring fine clothes for his mother and himself, to transfer them from their humble house into a grand palace, and in an instant it was done. Well, I don't know if any of you watched Aladdin the movie from Disney, but that genie sure doesn't look like Will Smith, huh? And now you can see that Aladdin is giving, Aladdin asked, and the genie is giving him wonderful things already. One day, Aladdin happened to see the emperor's daughter, the beautiful princess. Babadoor was riding on her elephant. The beautiful princess, Badubadoor, not the name we know, is it, was riding on her elephant, and he immediately fell in love with her. He decided then and there that he would marry her. Summoning the genie of the lamp, Aladdin gave his orders, and the genie provided him with 12 slaves, each with a basin filled with gold and jewels. Aladdin went to visit the emperor. Offering him the jewels, Aladdin proclaimed his love for the princess Badubadoor and and begged her hand in marriage. Babudador, that's a tough one for a princess. The emperor was very impressed with Aladdin and his splendid gifts. As for Badubadoor, she had fallen as deeply in love with Aladdin as he had with her. The emperor gave his consent, and they were married the very next day. So here they are after their wedding, going away on that elephant, and he's dressed pretty fancy too. And don't be crooked and make them dizzy, Dixie. You can see all the people that were watching the wedding, and the emperor too. However, the evil magician Ebenezer had not forgotten Aladdin and the lamp, and used his magic arts to discover that, instead of perishing in the cave like he had planned, Aladdin had escaped and married the princess. Choosing a day when Aladdin was away on a hunting trip, Ebenezer bought 12 copper lamps, put them in a basket, and disguised himself as an old peddler. He then went to the palace, crying, "New lamps for old! Bring me your old lamps, and I will give you new ones for them." The princess heard this strange cry, and remembering the dirty old lamp that belonged to Aladdin, she sent a slave to fetch it and exchange it for a bright new one. Little did she know that she had given away Aladdin's most treasured possession. That's a bit of a change too, isn't it? Bador made a big goof. Abenazar was filled with wicked glee. The magic lamp was his at last. He went out of the city gates to a lonely place where he remained until nightfall. Then he rubbed the lamp. The genie appeared, and at Abenazar's command, he transformed the Aladdin's palace and the princess in it to a far off place in Africa. So here's the genie moving the whole palace. He's kind of a big boy, isn't he? And there is the evil magician. Hang on just a second, guys. Could you go get the other Aladdin, please? All right. When Aladdin returned home, he was amazed. Where was his palace, his beautiful wife, and his magic lamp? Gone? What was he to do? He wrung his hands in despair and accidentally rubbed the magic ring. What do you wish? The genie of the lamp said as he appeared. Bring me back to my palace and my dear wife, replied Aladdin. What you ask, said the genie, is not within my power. Only the genie of the lamp can do that. Then take me to the spot where my palace is, commanded Aladdin. He had barely finished speaking before he heard a wind roaring in his ears as the genie picked him up and whisked him at incredible speed to Africa, where the palace now stood. He set him down under a tree by Bador's window and disappeared. It was night, and Aladdin slept soundly until the next morning, when he was roused by the princess opening her window. The princess was overjoyed to see Aladdin again and told him of how Abenazar held her prisoner and came to visit her every day. Aladdin gave her a deadly poison, which he told to pour into the magician's wine glass. Then he hid himself behind the screen. When Abenazar came to visit that day, instead of greeting him with tears like she had been doing, the princess welcomed him with a glass of poisoned wine. The magician accepted it eagerly and drank it to the very last drop. And then what happened? He fell down dead. Aladdin came out from his hiding place, and taking the lamp from Abenazar's pocket, he summoned the big genie. Take me home, he cried, and in a winking of the eye, the palace was back in China where it belonged. You may make sure that Aladdin and Bador lived there happily for the rest of their life. There goes the magician. And there they are home and living happily ever after. So, because that was kind of short, if you excuse me for a moment, I think we are going to compare the two. I am going to grab the Disney Aladdin, and we're going to read that. And then what I want you to do is to comment on the big differences that you see between this Aladdin, which is kind of evil, huh? And the Disney Aladdin, which we all grew up with. So hang on just a second. All right, change of plans, because you're used to Dixie doing a change of plans, right? Everything when Dixie's there at the den, we turn a little upside down. So instead, we're going to do another fairy tale called The Pied Piper of Hamelin. I hope you enjoy this one also. Here is the town of Hamelin. The town of Hamelin in northern Germany is famous today because of something which happened there hundreds of years ago. The city is on the bank of the River Weser and was even then a large, busy place with many fine buildings. But Hamelin was a terrible place to live for one reason: rats. I don't know about you guys, but rats are most of my worst little rodent or big rodent that is around. So you'll see me run if you see a rat. The town was overrun by huge, fearless rats. They attacked the dogs, cats, and bit the children in their beds. These rats didn't hide until nightfall before they searched for food. Oh no, these rats swarmed everywhere all day long, jumping on tables, gnawing the food in the kitchen while it was being cooked. The noise of their squeaking and the screaming filled the streets, but whenever the people of Hamelin whatever they tried to do to get rid of the rats seemed to have no effect. Okay, so who wants to eat the food after that kitchen? Yikes. At last, the townspeople could stand it no more. They stormed into the town hall and confronted the mayor. "What are you doing about the rats?" they shouted angrily. "Or do you spend all day sitting in fine clothes, eating fine lunches, which we pay for while the rest of us suffer? Something must be done." The mayor and councilors were not a little afraid of the shouting crowds, and they certainly didn't want to lose their fur-trimmed robes of office or the 7-course dinners they enjoyed from time to time. "Surely someone can think of something," wailed the mayor. "Let's start sending the town crier into every square in the city to ask for good ideas, offer a reward perhaps." So the very next day, a messenger was heard in every part of Hamelin reading the mayor's proposal to the crowd. "There will be a reward of 1,000 gold coins for whoever can rid the town of its plague of rats." There's the town crier. They didn't have telephones, did they? Or email. Well, of course, everyone had been trying to think of a way to get rid of the rats anyway, but they tried even harder on hearing about the reward. Engineers designed huge traps to catch the pests. Chemists sat up all night trying to find a poison strong enough to kill them without killing all the people too. Hunters talked about organizing an armed army to shoot them one by one, and someone even suggested that everyone should just leave the city and let the rats stay. But no one, it seemed, had an idea which would really work. This one has the hard pages to turn. With every day that passed, the rats seemed to grow in size and numbers, and the people grew more and more desperate to have them go. One morning during a council meeting, the doors burst open, and there stood a tall, thin stranger. He was dressed in the most peculiar clothes of the brightest red and yellow. His tunic had long draped sleeves. There was a jaunty feather in his wide-brimmed hat, and around his neck a long cord with a strange pipe. He smiled mysteriously at the startled mayor. He is dressed pretty weird, isn't he? In a soft voice and very politely, he said, "Your honors, I have come halfway around the world to solve your problem. I have been of service to kings in the west and the sultans in the east, and by means of a secret charm, I am here in Hamlin to rid you of your rats and claim the reward." The mayor and the council welcomed him warmly. It seemed as though their prayers had been answered at last. Promising him to whatever he wished, they urged the stranger to begin his magic at once. He stepped out into the street, raising the strange pipe to his lips. With eyes twinkling, the piper played 3 high-pitched notes and waited. Far away there was a muttering and mumbling sound. Gradually, it grew louder, like thunder rolling in the hills. Suddenly, from every house and hole, from every shop and cellar, the rats appeared. Old rats, young rats, big rats, small rats, rats of every color and design and description. Whatever magic was in the piper's call, the rats were following him as though those lives depended on it. Okay, I think it's creepy even to talk about this many rats. But that's our story. Through the narrow streets and across the squares, the piper danced, playing his shrill notes, and the little creatures followed. More joined the throng at every corner until it seemed that the cobbles were alive with the squeal of the sea of rats. The townspeople stared from their windows. They couldn't believe what they saw. Who was this prancing stranger dressed in such odd and colorful clothes? What was the magic of his music that no rat could ignore it, but was compelled to scramble and scurry after him across the streets of Hamlin? On and on the piper sped right across the city, never tiring, until dusk was falling and he came to the banks of the river. Whoa, baby, that one was way up. Ew, look at all those squirrels. Yeah. But the piper played on, wading into the dark water, and after him followed the rats. They rushed into the river's edge and then desperately, blindly hurled themselves after the stranger. For several hours more, the pipe was heard well into the night, with the splashing and squealing continuing until at last every rat was drowned. Next day, when the people of Hamlin realized that the rats really were gone, there was rejoicing in every part of the town. Free from the pests which had plagued their lives night and day for as long as anyone could remember, they rejoiced. Men, women, and children danced and sang in the street. There was feasting and music and laughter everywhere. "Hooray for the piper, the piper of Hamlin!" the happy people cried. But in the town hall, where the piper had gone to collect his money, no one appeared at all grateful. Having watched the rats drowning in the river the night before, the mayor felt quite safe in paying the piper not more than 1 gold coin instead of the 1,000 he had promised. The stranger listened in silence to the mayor, then his face darkened, and he shook with anger. Saying not one word, he raced from the room, up the stone steps, and onto the roof of the town hall. As he stood angrily shaking his fist over the town, the skies clouded over and a cold wind began to blow. The piper stepped down into the street and once more lifted his pipe to his lips. He blew 3 long, clear notes, then waited and listened. Excuse me, folks. Liz, can you get the door, please? Sorry. Life happens when you're doing life in quarantine, right? Look, before we find out what those 3 piercing notes are doing, let's find out about a special surprise today. I have a guest star today to come to reading time. So I hope you know her and will cheer loudly. Here is Lisa Moe.
Hey, how are you guys? Long time no see. What are you doing to keep busy? I hope you're being good, behaving yourselves, staying out of trouble. Miss you guys, miss the dances, but I hope everything's going well. Good to see you. Candy says hi. Okay, back to reading.
Wasn't that fun? That was worth a knock on the door, huh? All right, so as you remember, the cold wind was blowing, the skies got dark, the piper stepped onto the street, and once more he lifted his pipe to his lips. He blew 3 long, clear notes, then waited and listened. Faces appeared at the doors and windows. Women stopped their chattering, and men straightened from their work. What was the stranger doing now? Why was he still playing his magic pipe now that all the rats were gone? Then the children in 2s and 3s came out from their houses, laughing and chattering. At first they came slowly, as if they weren't sure where they were going or why. But the piper began his music again and moved on down the street. Little feet began to run. More children came to join the first, clapping their hands and skipping. When the piper turned the corner, the children followed him, and the sound of their happy laughter mingled with the music. Uh-oh. As he had done the day before, the piper danced and played his way across Hamlin, through every lane and across every square. Everywhere he passed, his sweet music brought more children to join the chattering crowd at his heels. They joined hands and ran after him without once looking back. They passed the town hall once more, where the mayor and councilor stood dumbstruck, unable to move or cry out. On and on past the old cathedral at the edge of the city. By now, hundreds were following the piper. Every child who was old enough to walk was there, and all were with him as he turned towards the river where the rats had perished. Uh-oh. Oh, look at them. Just as the horrified onlookers felt sure that the children were going to drown as the rats did, the piper turned to the west toward the great hill which looked down on Hamlin. Oh, thank goodness, the people thought with great relief. They'll never be able to cross Koppenberg Hill. The piper will have to stop with our children, too. And here they are, happily skipping and jumping. Kind of. All right. When we get back to the den, we're going to do some hopping and skipping and jumping. But as they watched, unbelievably, the side of the hill seemed to open. A narrow, dark corridor appeared, and the piper, followed by all the children, disappeared inside. When all of them were gone, the great door shut fast, and there was silence. Everybody's silence. Only one child was left, a lame boy who hadn't been able to keep up with his friends. As you may imagine, the town of Hamlin was a very sad and quiet place for many years afterwards, and the story of that awful day was carved on a stone by Corporal Berg Hill as a reminder to all that a promise once made should be kept. So as you can see, this one was one of the more original stories, just like Aladdin, and it had a big difference in the ending, right? So which did you like best, these old-fashioned stories or the Disney stories? I think you can give the messages to Bob, and I'll see them also on Facebook. And I really, really want you to let me know what we should do for next week's story. If you don't, what am I going to do? You just want to look at me all like this and just be? Nah, I don't think so either. So let me know what kind of story you would like next week. And just keep praying that this virus is done soon and we can get back to dancing and laughing and shouting at the den. Also, if you didn't look at it last night, you should go online and look at last night's Zumba. Our 3 wonderful Zumba teachers had a guest last night, and it's very, very fun to watch that. So do that. I'm trying to think if there's any other announcements. Remember about the virtual Olympics that's been going on. I think they just ended and had closing ceremonies for the summer season. But keep your eye out, because if we aren't done with this virus enough to have bowling, then we will do virtual bowling, which would be a lot of fun. I can actually figure out how that could happen easier. So keep an eye on that for you Special Olympic fans, because that will be coming. What else would be coming? I think I announced this last week, but on Halloween, October 31st, we will, or a day before or a day after, we will be having a big Halloween party that will feature all our regular singing, dancing, treats, even if we have to do it virtually. So if you have some suggestions that we can do it virtually, let us know. And we'll just keep praying that perhaps we'll be able to do it at the Wolf Den. The last thing is, don't forget about our She Shed. We haven't been able to do a lot of our fundraisers this summer that we often do. And so we are selling tickets for the wonderful She Shed. If you don't know what a She Shed is, it's like a regular shed on the outside, but it's been made gorgeous. There is a skylight, there's furniture, there's all of these things for an extra place you can get away from your house and enjoy it. They call it She Shed because this one is decorated mostly for the ladies, but it could be changed to a man's one too. So we are selling those tickets, and if you would remind the people in your life that these tickets are being sold and they will help us keep Project AD, the Wolf Pack, and the Wolf Den all open, maybe some of your folks would like to go online and get some of those tickets. I just got a pop-up that says, "Hi, Dixie, Bob, and Liz, and Lisa. How are you doing today? I'm ready to go walking a bit later." From Big Ed. You do it, buddy, and take advantage of it, because it's not going to get really hot until late in the afternoon. So let's do it. Anybody else? Good day to go walking. All right. Well, I love each and every one of you and miss you so much. So I'll see you next week. Bye.
There is a special place where adults with developmental disabilities can go to find a safe haven, a place of wonderful opportunities and joy. Project ID has social opportunities, meal programs, fun recreation, career development, church services, and the largest Special Olympic team in the state. Project ID is a real community treasure. Please be a volunteer, sponsor a member, or donate what you can to Project ID, Identity Beyond